Hello, so today I'm going to be working on the petticoat. This is the last of the Regency undergarments I'm going to be doing for this series. And I'm going to be using black snail patterns, dress and sleeveless Spencer. So I'm just going to be taking the pattern for the skirt and I'm going to be attaching a waistband and straps to it rather than trying to draft a petticoat pattern. This way it matches the gown, since this is also what I'm going to be using for the gown. So that will be convenient. I know that it will be similarly shaped, so it's not going to show at the hem if I make the hem shorter, obviously, but also it'll support the shape of the dress better than if I were to just make one up, theoretically. So Regency petticoats come in two varieties. There's the bodice petticoat, and those have a built-in like stays kind of thing. They're not really stays, but they have a bodice, and that supports the bust line and raises that a little bit. It also has the skirt part of the petticoat to support the skirts, so that's kind of an all-in-one garment. But because I really wanted to make separate stays for this series, I've decided to do the petticoat that is more what we think of, which is just a like skirt part. The reference image that I'm using is passed around on the internet a lot as a Regency petticoat. I mean, it looks like the references for Regency petticoats. However, this one doesn't seem to have its own source. When I kind of like chased it around in circles, the sources always went back to Pinterest. So who knows like where this is actually from and if it's just a recreation or if it's an accent garment. The internet does not really seem to know. First instance of this that I could find was on a blog, but that blog links back to Pinterest, so it just seems like it's a long circle of who knows where this petticoat is from. But it's really cute and it's really pretty, so I am gonna be trying to recreate it, and it seems to match what the sources say is accurate for a Regency petticoat, so that's fine. For materials, the petticoat in the photo looks like it's made of a really light cotton, lawn, or voile. I don't have that on hand, so I'm going to be using kind of a nicer quilting cotton. It's not really a quilting cotton, but it's like a cotton sateen, so I'm going to be using that, and then I'll be piecing together whatever lace I have in my stash because I don't want to purchase more stuff for this. So the gown itself, the fabrics for it was all quite expensive, so I'm trying to cut costs on every other part of this and use fabrics that I already have for all of the undergarments. I think in the future I really do want to make a bodice petticoat because I think they're very cool, and I would like to do more Regency styles in the future, but because I have an actual event coming up, I'm kind of going with the simplest of each of these things so that I can get everything done by the deadline. But that's about all I've got for this intro, so let's get started. So nothing changed much with the stays, so I'm just gonna go right into the petticoat fitting, and I've got that on, and it is just way too full. It looks nothing like the petticoat that I'm going for, so I am gonna have to like redo a whole bunch of this. So the extant petticoat that I was looking at is pretty straight without any gathers all the way back until around here. And then I think this is just too high, so I'm also gonna just, let's fix these straps first. So I was kind of guessing on everything because like it's not a normal, I don't know, it's not what we think of as a normal petticoat where it normally sits at the waist. The Regency petticoats sit above the waist because everything in Regency sits above the waist. So I'm just trying to feel this out to where it seems to look correct. I also, personally, I think I am very hippie for the Regency period. I got a lot of hip going on, and most of the Regency gowns seem to be very like a straight line, and I feel like this line looks a little bit better on people who have more of the like 1920s silhouette, whereas I am a little bit curvier than that. Let's move this in a little bit more. Okay, so at least the front is looking a little bit better, and I want to keep this very smooth. This also, it's just gathered onto a drawstring right now, so I will be doing an actual waistband where the entire thing is just like nicely gathered, but because I knew that I would have to fuss with this a lot, I wanted to be able to move these gathers around while I was in the fitting rather than having to undo an entire waistband. So also, like, the extant petticoat is smooth from front all the way to like side back where those not drawstrings, where the straps are supposed to meet. So this is like, the straps are way too far back right now. So I think that I want the straps to be around here. So let's fix that. It's actually only about an inch past where that seam is. I'll do that on this side too. Okay, that seems a little bit better. Maybe the length is not quite right now. Oh, I guess because I'm pinning this low, it's wanting to fold over. So let me fix that. Okay, so that seems a bit better. That might even be a little bit too far back. Let's see, it gets gathered up to about here. I'm just gonna tie this around the front so I don't have to keep reaching behind me. That seems a bit better actually. Now that it's mostly distributed to about the side seam there. So the gathers seem to they seem to look good starting at about this side seam, and then the strap is set about an inch back. So that's looking a lot better. And then the back looks pretty nice. Actually, I think I do like how much fullness it has in the back once this is all sorted out. I just didn't want all the fullness in the front. This is not sitting quite right, but I think that maybe it's because this strap is attached below where I have it gathered, so it's kind of making that poof out weird. I think once it's actually on a waistband, it should be fine. It is creating some drag lines, so maybe we need to pull a little bit more of the gathering forward, and I think that helps. Same with this side. There's that drag line going this way, which means that this fullness is wanting to resolve farther forward. So I'm just gonna pull some of those gathers forward, and that helps a bit. There's this part right here, but this is where the drawstring is coming out, so that's not gonna look correct until it's actually like a gathered thing on a waistband. Great, let's look at the hem. The hem is ugly because I just did it really quickly and I didn't take the time to like get everything straight, so it just is ugly. I think at the front it's the correct length. You can see my socks, so I'm not going to trip walking on this. The back, it's a trained dress, so the dress does have a train. I think that it's maybe too much of a train for a petticoat, so I think I will get rid of some of that maybe. Other than that, I think the hem looks pretty good. It's a long hem. I'm kind of on the fence about leaving the train long because it will protect the gown, and this is machine washable. Like, this petticoat is machine washable. The gown, however, is definitely not going to be machine washable. Yeah, so the gown is not going to be machine washable, so maybe I will just leave this long how it is so that it will theoretically hopefully protect the gown a little bit from any dirt and like from dragging out the ground. Most of the alterations for this are going to be just figuring out where the gathers go. So I think having it gathered a normal amount up to the side seam and then having it gathered a little bit from the side seam to where this front strap goes is probably the best, and then leaving it very flat at the front so that it keeps that flat silhouette all at the front. Other than that, that's pretty much the only alteration. I had originally thought that I should take some fullness out of the petticoat, but I think that I do like the fullness, and I think having the fullness at the back will help keep the back of the gown really nice, so I think that's good. So I'm gonna get to making the actual thing. I'm gonna take this apart. Like the shift, I'm gonna be doing flat felled seams on all of this, so I will take this apart, redo the seams so that they're a little bit more secure, and do flat felled seams, then do the hem, and then do the waistband. And it's gonna get a real waistband, not just like a folded over gathered thing. Yeah. Okay, so let's go do that. For the lace detailing on this, I'm just gonna use something that I have already. It's not really my first choice. I don't particularly like eyelash lace generally, and I don't think it's very historically accurate, but you know, whatever, we're going with it. I just want to use stuff in my stash so I don't have to buy anything else. I'm gonna use like a 2 repeat thickness of this, and then I'm going to top it with some of this lace to blend the cut edge. and then this has a lace part of it, so I'll end up cutting it away and like trimming it down so it's close, and then just kind of squishing it together so it looks right. That's the plan. Hopefully that works out, but I'm gonna work on cutting this and then I'll place it on the petticoat and just kind of see how it goes. I'm not really sure how I'm going to apply it yet. I'm thinking just top stitching it right onto the petticoat and then folding the like actual cotton fabric under so it's not showing, and then this will also get top applied by machine. I don't really want to spend like days hand sewing this, so I'm gonna do as much by machine as possible, and then anything that needs to be hand stitched, like the top half of this motif will probably need to be hand stitched. I'll hand stitch that part, but everything else I think should be okay being machine stitched. I've decided I don't like all the eyelashy bits on it actually, so I'm just gonna chop all those off. Obviously I have to leave the one on the in-between, but I think it'll look a little bit better without all of it at the end. Silly girl. You looking at the birdies? Are you ready? Yeah? Okay. So because this is all going to get gathered up into a waistband rather than using a drawstring, it's going to need to get over my body somehow so that it sits in the small place but still gets over like my hips or my head. So I've cut a big slit into it, just done a rolled hem to keep that opening from fraying out. But because the bottom, you can't really roll it in enough to make it so it doesn't fray out, I did a series of buttonhole stitches around this little bottom V, and then I also did a bar tack so that if this comes apart like this while I'm getting it on, that bar tack will take all of the strain rather than where it ends. Great, this wrap up is going to be short because it's a petticoat and it's not a very complicated petticoat, but the first thing I want to note is that if you watched my previous video about the stays, you might recall that I said these stays are a little bit too small for me. That is not the case this week, so I'm glad that I didn't end up changing anything and just like went with it, because you know, with like the fluctuations of hormones throughout the month, it really changes how clothes fit throughout the month. So the stays fit just fine this time, even though they were a little bit small in the last video. So, you know, but moving on to the actual subject of this video, I think that the petticoat looks really cute. Personally, some changes that I would like to make, I think if I was to make this in the future, I'd add maybe just a little bit more volume to it. I don't know, they're not super voluminous petticoats. They're not like Victorian petticoats, or even like, what are you guys doing? Oh, stupid cat. They're not like Victorian petticoats where it's a whole ton of volume and they're huge skirts. So the lack of volume is not a huge deal. I just like aesthetically, I think it looks nicer when there's a little bit more volume. The lace, I also would not have like made this my first choice of lace. Hello. This would not have been my first choice of lace, but I used it because it was in my stash and I didn't want to purchase lace. I think it turned out pretty well. I think it's cute and it looks fairly similar to the reference image. However, it's a little bit stiffer than I would want for this. I want it to be a little bit drapier, and the whole thing I would like to be a little bit drapier. I didn't have a cotton voile or a lawn, so it's a little bit more substantial than I would have wanted. But I don't know, like the reference image looks very light and airy, but that also could just be because it's old and has been worn a bunch and the fabric has kind of gotten thinner with age. For the straps, I ended up just using twill tape because, for one, it was the least amount of effort, but also if I decide at some other point that I want these straps to be shorter or longer, it's really easy for me to just switch them out with new straps. So that's why I did them in kind of the lazy way. I'm really happy with how the back lacing turned out. I don't know, it's not like the most functional or convenient way to do it, but I think it's pretty cute, and it's cuter than a hook and a bar, even if a hook and bar would have been much more convenient when getting dressed. Oh well, there's nothing convenient about getting dressed in this stuff anyways. And that's pretty much it. I chose to keep the front part pretty flat. That's what it looks like in the reference image, but also that way it doesn't add any extra bulk in the front, because Regency gowns already are like kind of a strange silhouette with the empire waist. Don't want to add anything extra to the front if I can avoid it, so I kept that really flat and then just kept all of the volume concentrated to the back, and hopefully that this will be enough to keep the skirts kind of kicked out. If not, then I'm gonna have to make like a little tiny bum pad, but you know, it'll be a small one because the Regency ones are small. So, and that's it, I think. Yes? What are you looking at? I think using the black snail pattern worked out really well. I think it's a good length. I think that it's a good volume. Like I said before, I might add a little bit more volume. I think when I'm making the actual gown, I'm gonna add more volume, but we'll see once I've tried the mock-up on and see if I actually want to add any volume. But you know, but yeah, generally I think that this was a good pattern to use for a petticoat. It was very simple, and like now I know that it will be a similar shape to the gown because I'm using that pattern also for the gown. So yeah, super simple, cute project. If you're looking for a project that is easy, then this is a good one, and you don't have to overly complicate it by adding all this lace for hand sewing if you don't want to. Cool. That's all I got for this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you think that I wasted my time with this lace, then I guess let me know. That's kind of rude. But if you have any other examples of extant petticoats, this was the only one that I saw that was like really like this. I don't know. Most of the petticoats that I could find for the Regency period were the bodiced petticoats, so I had kind of a hard time finding ones that were specifically the style and like this kind of elegant looking. But if you know any better resources, let me know. I'd love to hear them. And if you want to see the rest of this series, I'm going to be making the gown and also making a costume for Micah soon. So if you want to see that, then please subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.